So the second type of climate is called dry climates or B type of climate, where we saw like similar to A, there are three sub classifications. Okay, in fact there are more classifications. I think I have put it somewhere in the slides. I'll come back to it, but which is not there. Like Ramya was asking how it has been done as on date. This is not the and to answer partly to your question on how is it relevant today. These informations are added. We are not still using 1900s classification. The his idea remains same, but works are being improved. Okay, new dimensions are given to it. For example, let us say there is one classification called AS as well, tropical savanna. But I think this kind of climate is no longer there in the entire world. So that is taken off from the classification. Okay, so this is an updated one, or this is how things are changing or updated in the base that we have in hand. Okay, the second type of climate that we are talking about is dry climate. Okay, where evaporation exceeds precipitation not sufficient to maintain permanent stable groundwater in this area. Okay, and B type of types of climate are divided into two types on the basis of annual temperature and the rainiest month of the year. Okay, and there are two things: dry desert climate, semi-arid climate, and there are sub classifications as well, like we have in other places in this other type of climate as well. Here majorly there are two types. One is dry desert climate, semi-arid climate. Okay, so the symbols or the notification for that is B is yes first type of climate, type B, and then we have W or it's S. W represents dry desert climate and S represents semi-arid climate. And if you see further, you have H, K as well. What is H and K is what is added in the other types. Okay. Yeah, I think maybe we'll skip this. This is similar to what I discussed in the other places as well. And he further used mathematical formulas to clearly distinguish between one region to other region. Okay, so and if you see in the physical map, we can see where these kind of dry climates are pertinent, and you will see entire North African country and Gulf is fully of this kind of climate. Okay, and a major part of Australia as well. Okay, so again this is also to remind you that we should carefully look for cases, okay, based on the climate that we use. For example, in some part of the Indian subcontinent also has dry climate, particularly dry desert climate, like the Rajasthan that we have. Okay, and these are the further characteristics. For example, BW we saw. BWH means tropical dry climate, where average annual temperature is more than 18 degrees Celsius, where here in this case of tropical climate, where mean temperature is above 18 degrees Celsius and so on. Okay, there are specific characteristics for each sub classifications as well. Okay, K and H we said, where K is annual temperature below 18 degree, H is above 18 degree Celsius. Okay, the third type of climate, broad climate type, is C type, Okay, humid mesothermal or warm temperature rainy climates. Okay, so average here in this case, average temperature of the coldest month is above 3 degree Celsius and below 13 degree Celsius, and the precipitation in all seasons. No? We can experience precipitations in all seasons. Based on these seasonal distribution of precipitation, sea climate has been divided into three. Okay, like we have in other cases. In tropical we have three. As of now there were four, and in B we had two types, and here in C we have three types of climate. Okay, you can see from the notations as well. There is 1 CF and then with sub classification CES and so on. So CF is precipitation throughout the year and precipitation more than 1.2 inch in the driest month, and there are some characteristics that is given. CW again, dry winters, 10 times more precipitation in the wettest month of the summer season than the driest month of the winter season. Then CA again, yeah, so probably we'll not go into this because we have partly a small part of the Indian subcontinent. We have this kind of, we experience this kind of climate as well. Okay, and again there are ways. Köppen has identified further minor details in the C type, which is not discussed actually. For example, A, warmer summers, temperature of the warmest month about 22 degrees Celsius. You can see these are further classified. Is not stopped with two subdivisions, is gone on the third classification as well, where A and B, C are given. So what is A, what is B, and how he has managed to do all that is described here. Yeah. So mesothermal C type of climate is second portion. Just 1 second, just hold on for a minute. Okay, so mesothermal C type occupies the second largest portion of Earth's entire surface. Okay, the word mesothermal suggests warm and temperate condition with coldest month with average temperature below 18 degrees Celsius, but with all the months above not less than 0 degrees Celsius. The C-type climate and near portion of the D climate are the regions of great weather variability, for these are latitudes of greatest air mass conflict. Now this has got actually, where probably in the map you can see these type of climates are greatly influenced by the global winds. Okay, we will see why and how it impacts. The C-type region marks the beginning of true seasonality with contrast in temperature as evidenced by vegetation, soil, human life adaptation, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that was C, and similarly we have D type of climate. Okay, so that we can see in the North America and also part of Europe, northern Europe. Okay, so here the C is some part of Europe also has experienced C type of climate. Okay. Here the temperature of the coldest month is less than 3 degrees Celsius, but the warmest month is above 10 degrees Celsius, and ground surface covered with snow for several months of the year. So this is one of the characteristics of D type of climate. So again, D type of climate, if you see the number of subdivisions based on different observations he has done. Okay, so DFA, DFB, DFC, where long warm summers, continental, long and cool summers, short cool summers, subarctic regions within DF. Okay, I think we will not go in detail. I have just put only this slide because just to know that he has gone into dividing the he has went on to not superficial broadly classify. He went on to specifically say what do you observe, what you will encounter in this kind of climatic zones. Okay, the last type of climate is polar climate, okay, where temperature of the warmest month is less than 10 degrees Celsius, okay, and it is classified as you can see only ET and EF, okay. So ET is ET climate and a tundra climate where temperature of the warmest month is below 10 and above 0 degree, and EF climate, permanent snow fields, temperature in all months where are less than 0 degree Celsius. Okay, so not suitable, predominantly not suitable for habitation. Okay, so in summary, Köppen used two easily measurable weather elements like temperature and precipitation as basis of statistical parameter for delineation of different climatic zone. Okay, so his premises were basically on vegetation, but later he had added these two important components, and that defines the zone or each zone of the climate. In fact, temperature and precipitation are most widely and most frequently used effective weather elements as representatives of the effect of climate controls. Okay, so when we describe even in NBC, okay, if you see the definitions, warm and humid climate, okay, or dry climate or composite climate, the parameter used is temperature and precipitation. Okay, so this is one thing that we should keep in mind. His scheme of climate classification is primarily based on relationship between flora types and characteristics and the climate of the region. Yeah, that's what I was emphasizing. He also paid due attention to loss of moisture through evaporation, as he included effective precipitation. Later on, there are so many technical things, but we should remember that it is not just a qualitative description or qualitative exercise he has carried out. In fact, it is a quantitative exercise, both qualitative and quantitative exercise. That's why as on date as well we are using this type of this classification. Okay, although it is very famous and even as on date we use it, there are certain criticism that also we should keep in mind what the scholars have said about the Köppen classification. Okay, Köppen gave undue significance to mean monthly temperature and precipitation in his scheme of climate classification and neglected other weather elements such as precipitation intensity and amount of cloudiness and number of rainy days or daily temperature extremes and wind. Okay, though we have been discussing, his main focus was on to take vegetation as base and then add precipitation and temperature. There are criticisms that he has neglected other parts that is mentioned here like this. That's why we have a combination of Köppen and new models. Okay, so the ones who have worked on these lines, they have not entirely neglected what the base Köppen has prepared. Okay, so it has been just revised or not revised, refined. It has been refined further in over a period of time. He made his scheme more descriptive and generalized and ignored consideration of causative factors. Okay, so that's why a combination of Köppen and other models are used to describe this, because only with this it is very difficult to understand or comprehend the climate. The use of different letters, symbols to indicate different climatic types and their secondary or tertiary subtypes makes scheme very difficult to memorize. Yeah, we have seen this and we can understand this. It's not very easy to remember all this, but we can broadly remember how things have gone, how he has perceived things. Otherwise, it is very little difficult to replicate the same thing. Now we have the tools in hand, we can do it. Otherwise, this is a generic comment. He has used too many terminologies, too many letters, okay, small letters, and even symbols to differentiate climate. That is slightly complicated to comprehend. Okay, so again I have put it here, the same image with whatever we have seen now. Okay, so if you look this image now, you will have some broader understanding of what was the classification about, and what are these lines and how we can relate this map. Okay, and this is a projected map. You can see from Indian subcontinent, there's a prediction that we may lose out these C-type climate in Indian subcontinent. Okay, but again this is a model. This may be entirely wrong as well. There's no guarantee that it will happen, but this is one kind of a projection. So like we have other kinds of projections like climate change, right? So climate change, how do we measure it? There is no one model. Okay, there are n number of models which predicts climate change over a period of time. Okay, and if you have seen this a TED talk on inconvenient truth, inconvenient truth, where actually that was the initial period where climate change aspects were started appearing in the mainstream discussions. Okay, where maybe this is very interesting. You can see, you can Google it. Okay, the title is The Inconvenient Truth. He was actually president of US that time. He gave a talk on this, and then he was fascinated by the idea of climate change, and then he had made several presentations on the topic of climate change. He used one based on this, we have all this new talks that we have in hand. Okay, so 1.5 degree raise in temperature in next 50 years, 3 centimeter raise in water level, 3 to 7 centimeters raise in sea level. Okay, over a period of next 70 years. Okay, so all these discussions are through what he had presented, and later things have discussed. But there are other critics as well for that. Okay, because whatever model he is using, there are scientists who say that these models are some of the statistical tool he is used is not appropriate. Okay, there are counter things as well on that. Okay, so like this is again a projection. This may hold good or this may change as well, but this gives you some broad understanding how world will be if you go as usual. Okay, right. And this is more clear diagram where we can see what are the things that we have. AF we don't have, AW and CFA, and some part of B climate as well. So A we have, B we have. A is a major one. Okay, that's why we went in a little bit deep on A, and we have some of B and C, slightly C component of climate. Yeah. Again another map just to indicate where is what is what, and if we are interested about this our country, so how do we read all this through the map? Okay, I have also open this, maybe. I'll share this after the lecture. You can also you can go through the PPT as well, and also you can, there are 2-3 links I have put in the slides. So maybe you can explore all this in your free time. Whatever discussion that we have, okay, it's all mapped, okay, it has been superimposed on the earth surface, okay. And for those who don't know how we can do this, maybe landscape student will help you, okay. I hope they are aware how this is done, okay. So the other class, Ramya and others can ask Akhil to explain them how this can be done, okay. Once you have 2D information, how do you superimpose on earth surface, okay. So you can go through this. I'll share this after this lecture. We can see which part of the country have what type of climate, and how do we understand this, right. Okay, that was Köppen and Köppen's classification, and primarily we will stick to that classification, but however we'll briefly discuss also about other type of classification, how is it different from Köppen's, and there are more than 15-16 classifications, but these are very famous ones that we are discussing, okay. Like I told you, the other one is Tone-White classification, where he initially did the similar climate classification for North American cities, and then he proposed a new classification for the entire world. As his scheme was little complex, and he used majorly empirical method for doing it. Like Köppen, Tone-White also considered natural vegetation of the region as one of the major indicators of climate. Okay, he accepted the concept that amount of precipitation and temperature had paramount control on vegetation, but he also applied the inclusion of evaporation as one of the important factor. Okay, so one of the critics we also mentioned, right, where he did not consider some aspects of other aspects of climatology. So he had tried to, probably he is one of the critics. That's why we are getting that criticism that Köppen has not discussed this. So he has introduced a new additional parameter on evaporation for the same idea Köppen had already prepared. Okay, so he used 2 parameters in this regard. One is precipitation effectiveness and temperature effectiveness for delineation. Delineation, it's not delimitation, delineation. It's an error. Delineation of boundaries of different climatic zones. What is precipitation effectiveness? Precipitation effectiveness or precipitation efficiency refers to only that amount of total precipitation which is available for growth of vegetation. He used precipitation effective ratio for calculation of amount of water available to vegetation. Precipitation effective ratio is calculated by dividing total monthly precipitation by monthly evaporation. Okay, so an index is prepared based on this for the entire year. Thermal effectiveness, he believed that temperature had important contribution to the growth of vegetation. We all know that. He thus devised an index of thermal efficiency or thermal effectiveness expressed by positive departure of monthly mean temperature from freezing points. Okay, this is more technical and more, slightly more complex than what Köppen had prepared. Okay, and I have not put everything, we are not discussing in detail as well, but you can just remember that on the basis of precipitation effectiveness, thermal efficiency and seasonal distribution of rain, he depicted totally 32 types of climate on world map. Okay, and where so many descriptions and sub descriptions are given for all the regions. Okay, then he reclassified. Okay, he presented 2 times, initially for the North American cities, and then he for the entire world, and it was further refined as well. Okay, after making sizable modifications, a new classification was proposed in 50s. Okay, 3 indices of precipitation effectiveness, thermal efficiency and seasonal distribution of hills in his second classification, but in a different way. Instead of vegetation as done in 1930s classification, he based his new scheme of climate classification on the concept of potential evaporation. Okay, so new things, in the sense refinement has occurred, refinement in the way in which the classification was carried out is done. He is presented in his scheme. Okay, so yeah, Thornwhite's scheme yielded the number of major climate types, a total of 32 types of climate. You can say it's actually 3 times more than what number of sub classifications Köppen had created. Like Köppen's scheme, Thornwhite's scheme also became popular among some group of scholars, okay, researchers like zoologists, geographers. They appreciated the work of Thornwhite, but this scheme was not appreciated or accepted by the climatologists. The scheme does not include the other climatic aspect. Okay, so that's one thing about Thornwhite's classification. This scheme also suffers from serious problem of non-availability of data of evaporation of different places. This will also answer partly to what was discussed. How do we get data? Okay, temperatures we can get, precipitations we can get, and we have historically recorded this kind of information, temperature and precipitation, in a very easy manner. Okay, evaporation and quantifying it and recording it for over a period of time requires lot of efforts. Okay, that's one of the drawbacks that we have. Okay, yeah, I think broadly based on that was his classification. Then based on these two, there is a third type of classification where Treadward, okay, he said the classification put forth by Köppen, okay, and the classification put forth by Thornwhite, okay, he has simplified both the scheme, okay, and then a new scheme has been generated where a combination of quantitative assessment and qualitative data is combined, and then a new classification is proposed. Okay, he is an American climatologist, made several revisions and modifications in the scheme of climatic classifications of Köppen's, primarily Köppen's, since 1930s. Ultimately presented a simple scheme of climate classification having blending of both empirical, this is what I was trying to say, a combination of both quantitative and qualitative data has been incorporated in classification of this zone. His main idea was to simplify things and make it more readable and usable for people. Okay, his classification was similar since it was same. It was based on uh, uh, what Köppen had done. So slight, there you can see slight modification. One additional climate has come. Tropical climate, dry climates, middle latitude or wet climate, microthermal temperate climate, and boreal climate. Is added one new type of climate based on the parameters he had used. Okay, otherwise it was more or less what Köppen had given, but in a simplified manner. Okay, so it is very simple and unambiguous and a mixture of both empirical and generic data. It uses only two weather elements, again like Köppen had used, avoids vigorous statistical and mathematical calculations in determining climate types and plays between the boundaries. Köppen had used this step. Okay, we saw. I told you he used mathematical equations to clearly distinguish between one zone to the other zone. The scheme also includes effects of land and water surface on climate of the area. So we saw how these two elements have an impact on the overall climate. Okay, this is included in this scheme, and his scheme became more popular among some researchers or some community. For example, geographers like it for its simplicity. Okay, so why are we discussing all this? Okay, I think I partly hinted this in my in initial discussions. We saw three classifications. Okay, and why are we worried about, or why are we in fact studying all this? Okay, this is from the perspective of two things. One, we should do something based on climate. Okay, precisely, for example, in Sustainable Architecture Studios, we often start discussions about which climate, where is the project, which climate are you talking about. Okay, so we should have this kind of understanding, and also from the broad global perspective, climate change, global warming, from all these perspective as well, we should have a good understanding about what we are talking, because our works, our planning decisions, our design decisions will have an impact on overall conditions. Okay, so significant climate change has occurred on Earth's surface in the past, and it has been said. Okay, I've got one graph. For example, these were in the early 2000s, and how temperature has gone drastically from this space. Okay, there is nothing society can do about long-term influence that cycle, the cycle of that swing that we can experience. Okay, however, our global societies must address short-term changes that are influencing the global temperatures. Okay, can we do something on climate change? Directly, we can't do anything. Okay, can we do something on overall on something on global warming issues? No, we can't do anything directly. But all our small initiatives that we take, for example, from going to passive design strategies, to use of energy efficient materials, to in fact using of appropriate plant materials based on climate and landform, and respecting the topography and so on and so forth. All these small initiatives or steps that we take will have a collective impact on the climate. Okay, so this is one thing that I wanted to say. I wanted to bring one more discussion, or maybe some controversy here. How many of you have seen the other aspect of climate change? How many of you say that climate change uh, is just hoax? There's nothing like climate change. How many of you have seen that? Anyone? Okay, I'll bring, I think, was that, I'm forgetting name. Let me check the list. Chandra or Dhananjay. Ah, are you guys there? Yes. So what is your view? What is your comment on this? Or have you read anything more than this? What has been said? No thoughts? Okay. 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 Any other? Okay. Okay. Right. Yeah. Any other point? Anyone wants to say? No. Yeah. See, actually, I got one image which may, which will, what is it? Which will bring more controversies. For example, sorry, uh, they one of the authors have tried, okay, to map whatever temperature historically they have in hand uh, between 2500 BC to 2014 current AD. And if you see, we are somewhere here. What is the? This is 2016, okay, and 2000 at what do you say? The projected or the word that you use, accelerated temperature that we may encounter. Okay, and if you see from the entire existence perspective, this is not a new phenomenon for us, and it is not a very this is not very challenging phenomena from the overall existence perspective. Like Ramya used a word, the acceleration in which it is happening is the cause of concern for short term, because of its short term impact. Okay, long term also it will have an impact, but but this is not new for us. This is not new for the earth. Okay, so we had it's a recorded history on different periods where we had peak uh, global temperatures okay, and we had ice ages and so on, okay. So if you see from that perspective, this is not a new phenomena, and it will keep coming, and this is how it works. But it has an impact on the lifetime that in which we are living, okay. It has an impact on our health, on, in fact, on everything, okay, on the quality of life that we aim for, okay, and also too much of dependent on natural resources and so on and so forth, okay. So we should not be we should understand two things here. One, yes, there's an impact, and pertinent impact, and we have to do something, and a lot of efforts have been taken in this regard. And in fact, whatever we are trying to do from sustainable perspective is all to address this, right? And but from the larger perspective, this is not a new thing, and this is not it is not what do you say, something which Earth has not seen before, right? Things have happened before as well, okay. So maybe I'll leave this chart with you. You can see, and you can, somebody is interested, you can go through and check what are these things, what are each events, what has happened in those period, and why and how it will have an impact on today's aspect, okay. So I think we will take up this the second dimension, topography, in the next class, okay. And I have some things to discuss, like how do we classify topography, and what is the definition, and what are the ways in which we can understand terrain, okay, and how it impacts climate, okay. And also from ENVIMATE tool perspective, there is one important component that we'll be discussing. Maybe through this we'll have some understanding about, see, in ENVIMATE, the important parameter is I would say only two things, okay. One is the way you model your site, the way you model your site and buildings, okay. The other major or equally important parameter is the input parameters that you give, okay. So in input parameters, one of the component is also about the context, okay, and the environment, the immediate context that model has, okay. We will discuss it through this lecture, or through when we discuss in detail about this. And also I'll try to bring the PhD scholar also to talk or to join us, and also add some points to this topic. Okay, yeah, that's it from my side, and if you have any questions, kindly